It means the ministry's interfering at Hogwarts.
You're not going mad. You're just as sane as I am.
I must not tell lies.
You seem to be laboring under the delusion that I'm going to, what was the phrase? Come quietly.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 25, The Beetle at Bay. And Mollie is back with us.
Hey!
And I wanted no one other than Mollie to do this chapter.
I'm so excited.
This is a fun one.
I'm so excited.
This chapter is the source of a whole lot of opinions in the Harry Potter fandom of us, so we'll get to them. Some things that happen in this chapter. We get the news that breaks that 10 Death Eaters have escaped from Azkaban. We get another educational decree. This one's number 26. And obviously we get some Cho-Harry interactions.
Oh, can't wait.
Yeah. And as the title indicates with the Beetle part, we get some Rita Skeeter.
Yeah.
So, before we get to the main event of the Cho and Harry, let's get through the previous things that happen here. We get the 10 Death Eaters escaping from Azkaban. They only name 3. They name Dolohov, Antonin Dolohov, Augustus Rookwood, and Bellatrix Lestrange. And they say that Dolohov murdered Gideon and Fabian Pruitt. Rookwood leaked Ministry of Magic secrets to Voldy, and obviously we know Bellatrix tortured and is responsible for the permanent incapacitation of Frank and Alice Longbottom. We just got that emotional chapter of Christmas on the Closed Ward with Neville and his parents, which is heartbreaking. And now, a week later, really, you're getting the whole school finding out, and Neville wanting to keep everything so private and to himself, which is his right, now gets everything thrust upon him. Like, I think Susan Bones actually mentions, after losing her uncle and aunt and cousins, and now having every detail thrown out about it, she goes to Harry and is like, I finally get what it's like to be you. Yeah. And I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Because
now everybody's staring at you, everybody's whispering, everybody's got their own theories and things flying about you, and she's like, I don't know how you put up with this. Yeah. Like, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. So you're getting a little bit more empathy coming from some other students. The news that this brings, there's a lot of whispering, there's a lot of talking in the hallways, so much so that leads to the educational decree. Mm-hmm. But what do you... I always get excited with the news of... This sounds weird, but I always get excited with the news of, like, Death Eaters escaping Azkaban, because it's like, I think it's action. Mm-hmm. It indicates that there's actions to be had. Yeah. And that always excites me. Like, oh, we're going to, like, get into the actual war and the fighting now. But I don't know. Mm-hmm. What do you take from that opening big landmark scene?
Oh, I'm with you on that one. Like, I just, the whole picture in the newspaper, the psychopathic look of Bellatrix. I always think of Anna now whenever I see Dolohov. Yeah. So, it's like, you're like, okay, stuff is going down. It's about to happen.
We didn't have you on for the Christmas of the Closed Ward. So what did you kind of think of the Neville aspect of this?
I mean, I feel for Neville in this situation. At the same time, though, it's kind of cool to see Neville evolve in this chapter.
That's true.
So it kind of brings a little bit of that fire, that like Gryffindor fire that was missing a little bit throughout the beginning. Yeah, I wish I could have done the whole St. Mungo's chapter too, because St. Mungo's, I would work there. I know you said you wouldn't, but totally would work there. Sign me up for St. Mungo's.
Emergency rooms are so chaotic anyway, but you add the magical malady bit to it, and you're just like, oh my goodness, this is a lot.
No, I'm all about it. All about it.
Well, you can have that aspect
I'll
of
work
magical
on the
help.
therapy floor. If there's a therapy floor, I'll work on it.
Would you be helping Broderick Bode trying to work through his stuff?
I would.
Because we do get a Broderick Bode mention
Yeah.
that he was unfortunately attacked by a devil's snare, that potted plant that was put next to his bed.
Yeah.
Did not end well for Mr. Bode. But going back to your Neville point, yeah, we do get a kind of a growth of Neville in this chapter, and we get him in the DA meetings, and Harry takes note. It's almost alarming at how drastically and quickly he's improving. Mm-hmm. There are words like he's just working harder, he's a little bit more driven, more focused, and everybody's like, we've never seen this type of Neville before. Yeah. We've never seen this from him in any class at any time. So clearly that news of Bellatrix being on the loose again has spurred real inspiration in him to really get down to business.
Yeah. I think it goes back to your original point. It's like, he's like, oh, this is real now. Like, I got to step this up. I got to be able to protect myself. And I'm sure too, like, he's thinking about his parents. It's cool to see that.
They see he's almost like number 2 in the DA class. Yeah. Like, obviously we're not counting Harry because he's teaching it. So it's like Hermione and then Neville, like 1, 2.
Yeah.
And he's catching up on Hermione very quickly, which that should send some signals out to readers. Yeah. Don't sleep on Neville.
Right.
So obviously with educational decree coming in at number 26, which that decree is teachers cannot give students info that is not strictly related to subjects they are teaching. Obviously, that is spawned from a lot of kids talking about this news and wanting information and wanting everybody's 2 cents. And maybe Umbridge is aware that Harry particularly has some relationships with some teachers, like Hagrid, like McGonagall, might want some of that information. So she tries to circumvent that. And I feel like this is really inhibiting free speech here. Yeah. Like, you're restricting it on an immense level.
Right.
You're infringing upon some rights that I think this is the first decree that really oversteps its bounds.
Yeah.
Like, others are like, wow, that's unnecessary. This is like, well, now you're really stepping over a line. And now you're flipping a switch on something that's getting darker.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting you have that perspective, because like when I read it, I thought more of like when the chamber was opened and they asked Binns about it. Mm-hmm. My thought process went to like a kid in a classroom asking questions. So that was just my perspective of reading it. So
we haven't gotten a Umbridge inspection of Binns' class yet.
No, we haven't.
What do you think? Like, she's just given up on that one. Like, what am I going to do with a ghost?
Right. She was probably bored. She was probably falling asleep.
Well, he's also lecturing, so I guess technically he's doing his job well.
Right. Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
But we haven't gotten that one. We haven't gotten any news on Binns lately for a while. But
yeah. By the way, I'm with you. Giant Wars thing, super cool.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like I get that Binns is not exactly the most charismatic lecturer.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's some cool stuff to be learned here.
Yes.
I would almost like, everybody makes fun of Hermione for reading Hogwarts, a history. Mm-hmm. I'd be just reading my magical textbooks. Like, this is actually, like, if you're a Muggle-born or a half-blood that hasn't, like, lived in the magical world, mm-hmm. I feel like I'd be reading, like, a fictional story.
It'd be awesome.
Right? Like, it's not like reading a normal history textbook.
Yeah.
It's like giants and witches and wizards and dragons, and like I'd be like, oh, this is like reading Lord of the Rings or something like that.
Be cool.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me. I'm a nerd.
No. I am too.
We get news that Umbridge has started torturing other students, not just Harry. We get news that she's now torturing Lee Jordan. Mm-hmm. And Harry's offered some ways to treat such wounds.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, like, how does that stay quiet? We just talked about, like, the educational decree itself overstepping bounds. she's now torturing multiple students.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe every student has the angle that Harry does of like, I'm not going to give her the satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be one student there that's going to be like, forget this. Like, hey, Dumbledore, look at this. Like, there's problems here.
I think it's like the people she's choosing to punish. And I'm sure if there's anything, like, I'm sure some of the kids know about it because there's not a whole lot that goes unnoticed at Hogwarts.
And secrets spread very, very quickly.
Yeah. But it just seems like the type of people that she's, giving these detentions to and doing these things to, they have that mindset where they're like, nope, you're not going to break me.
And that's fair, but Lee Jordan is not exactly known for keeping his mouth shut. Quite the opposite. He's like shouting to the rooftops.
Yeah.
And like no one's writing their parents being like, hey, I'm being abused.
Yeah.
Like, not like, oh, I was in Flitwick's class and a spell went wrong. Like, no, I am being physically targeted and abused.
Yeah. I wonder if they just feel like powerless to her.
I mean, Malfoy's written his dad about like everything that's kind of gone wrong. And that's been in the course. Well, okay. Crouch turning him into a ferret aside. Yeah. Every other thing has been like in the course of an actual class that's, I guess, a normal hazard at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
That can be written off as like, well, that's just part of the class that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Madame Pomfrey's got you.
Yeah.
Other than the ferret.
Yeah.
The ferret was an out-of-the-way attack.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a weird thing that I just don't understand how it stays so quiet.
Yeah.
We get more of Umbridge harassing Trelawney and Hagrid. Harassing is the only word I can think of. It's not an evaluation anymore. You're just...
being mean to be mean.
Kind of, yeah. Occlumency is worsening for Harry, so as Neville's getting better... Harry is getting worse in his lessons.
Yeah.
Which leads to Ron casting doubt on Snape's whole intentions to begin with. Like, is he not trying to close off your mind? Is he trying to literally open your mind up?
Mm-hmm.
And then I do like what Hermione says of just like, stop that. You can't speak like that because what evidence has he actually given you that he is working for Voldy?
Right.
He's done everything he's supposed to be doing. Dumbledore trusts them. Whoa.
I feel so bad for Harry in this whole occlumency thing because I feel like they really failed him. Like,
you do?
I really do. Like,
would you have started it earlier? Like in book 4 when this happened? Like when he
not necessarily failing on like not starting earlier. I think they failed him in a way of not explaining. I just feel like Snape is just being a jerk to be a jerk and not actually trying to, like, he's like, okay, sure, fine, I'll help him, but I'm not going to, like, help him.
It's tough because I think you're right. And Elizabeth did a good job of trying to break down, like, just him as a teacher in those occlumency lessons.
Yeah.
And I think there's a point. I think he starts the lessons well, because he answers a lot of Harry's questions, which I don't think Harry was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get to a point, and then Snape's just like, why aren't you, like, listening to me? Like, or why aren't you doing what I'm telling you to do? And then it just kind of devolves from there into their normal back and forth.
Right.
They're both to blame, I think.
Yeah.
I think they're both coming at this in an antagonistic way, and part of that's also on Dumbledore because they haven't had a good history up to this point.
Right.
So now you're putting basically two antagonistic people into the same room and literally telling them to attack each other's minds. It's like, this is not going to go well.
Not well at all.
And
it's hard because it's like, okay, well, besides Dumbledore, who else would be able to teach him this? Like, who else is good at this? I guess you're right. They both fail each other in this scenario, but yeah, just...
Well, Snape's still the adult in the situation. He should... No, it's tough, because he knows the importance of it, which is why he does it.
Right.
But it's like, you could be better about it.
Right. A little bit more patient.
Yeah. Not like, he doesn't give Harry a couple of compliments where he's like, oh, that was better than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Like, that's a better first go than other
Right.
people. But
Right.
there's like two little mini compliments, which I guess for Snape, mini compliments are like massive compliments. But,
Right.
you know, you got to take it in stride, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, Molly, are you ready for this?
Yes.
Are you ready for the awesomeness?
I'm so ready for this.
We have Cho and Harry going on a date. And it's Valentine's Day, and they're going to Hogsmeade. But okay, I'm going to start with something right off the gate. Right out of the gate, I have an issue with this. Because the first day back from break, which is presumably early January, they have the conversation where they set up this date, right? And then presumably, because we don't see anything happen, and Harry doesn't mention anything with Cho during the DA class, he's so focused on Neville.
Right.
So presumably they're not talking a whole lot during the DA sessions.
Right.
So we're going a whole month and a half, where they don't seem to interact or talk after setting the date, and now you're going... And that's after 2 weeks of them not talking or corresponding after they had their first kiss.
Yeah.
So you get 2 weeks between first kiss and next interaction. Then you get a month and a half between asking out on a date and then the actual date.
Yeah.
Of course this is going to be awkward.
Very.
Like, of course Harry's going to be walking up to Cho being like, what the heck do I say? Also, my arms are moving oddly. And why is my hair the way it is? And like, everything about this is weird. And you're focused on all of the wrong things.
Yep.
Going in.
Yeah, those first date feels, man.
Have you ever had this where it's like you've had a moment with someone and then you have not interacted with them for a while before your second moment with them? I'm going to put you on blast. You were just married.
Yes.
So your first moment with your now husband.
Yes.
And the second moment.
Yeah. It was like a day.
Well, okay, that's more reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I tend to fall like in that day to a week.
Yeah.
At least for communication and being like, hey, how's your day going?
Right.
I just have that issue to start on this whole thing before we even get to all of the other stuff. Like Harry could and Cho. This is a two-way street.
Yeah.
They both could do a better job of being like, hey, how are you doing? Or, hey, how was that transfiguration class? Or, I heard Snape's giving you trouble, you know, forget him or whatever, you know, something.
Just something.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything at all. But they just go long periods of time talking to each other. So that's a rough. But I do like speaking of Harry being self-conscious about his looks and the way he's walking, he checks his reflection in a teaspoon.
Yeah.
A teaspoon.
Just real quick.
Like, how does if Snape was, I would have actually loved if Snape was in earshot of this and just seeing Harry check his reflection in a teaspoon, and then you just get a snide comment from like the gallery of Snape just being like, oh, that figures, Potter, that figures. All right, so they eventually break through this awkwardness of like, hey, I haven't talked to you in like a month. So they start talking about Quidditch, which is always a good start. That's their baseline.
Yeah.
And that's great. Then Pansy Parkinson makes it weird.
Yeah.
And she calls out Harry, and she's like, Cho, you can do better. He's not even that attractive. At least Cedric was attractive.
Yeah.
Which just makes it super awkward, and then they kind of fall back into this, like, odd silence.
Like, okay, hey.
But then they get to Hogsmeade, and they actually look at all of these signs on every single shop window about the break from Azkaban. And Cho actually does make a really interesting note. She's like, Dementors were swarming this place for one Sirius Black.
Yeah.
10 Death Eaters escaped from Azkaban. Not one Dementor to be found anywhere around.
They don't care.
And here's like, that's actually a really valid, good point.
Yeah.
That's weird. I mean, he has a little inside info in that Dementors are supposedly being recruited by Voldy. Which then brings the question. I have a whole bunch of questions about that.
Okay, yeah.
One, how does one recruit a Dementor? Do the Dementors have a leader? How do you communicate with said Dementor? Do you just talk and they understand you? Do they talk? We haven't heard one talk.
Do they just, like, give a thumbs up?
Just like a skeletal, like, yes.
Yeah.
That'd be really, I would be intimidated if they were, like, going for the thumbs up and then they went thumbs down. I'd be like, oh gosh.
No. Then comes the Dementor's kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know how you, like, so we get that scene of the Death Eaters and Hagrid and Madame Maxine, like, going to the Gurg of the Giants.
Yeah.
And that whole process of recruiting the Giants.
Yeah.
How does that work with Dementors?
Right.
I don't, like, how does Voldy swing that?
Right.
Or how does Fudge communicate with them when he needs them to go somewhere?
Right. Well, the other thing, too, which is an interesting question, is, like, well, what was going on in Azkaban to begin with? Were those Dementors leaving them alone? Those Death Eaters alone? Did they end up, like, obviously, like, they helped with the breakout, I'm going to assume.
They didn't actively participate in the breakout. They just didn't help keep them in.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, they just passively were like, oh no, they're escaping.
Yeah.
Darn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, what is the moral compass of a Dementor?
I don't know. I think,
you know?
I mean, obviously they want to be off this stupid rock.
Right.
So I guess the bargaining chip is like, hey, we won't confine you to this rock.
Maybe.
Like, you can go wherever you want.
Yeah. And then the skeletal thumbs up.
The skeletal thumbs up. Yes, exactly.
That's just how I'm going to think that they communicate from now on.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just have these, like, ideas of, like, what is going on?
Yeah. By the way, too, like, sorry, going back to the whole Cho and Potter date, like, how do you not have a plan?
Well, that's what, like, so that's
You
part
know?
of the problem of not talking for like a month. But yeah, I agree. It's weird to not have a plan. And they're just like, also Hogsmeade. I don't know how many real options there are. Like, hey, you want to check out the Shrieking Shack?
Right.
A haunted building? Yeah.
And then go to the Hogshead.
Right. We don't know what we're gonna find there. There's a bunch of excitement there. Does it count as a petting zoo?
It might.
It might. Goats everywhere. You never know.
You never know.
Well, regardless, they end up at a place called Madame Puttyfoot's.
Oh boy.
Which is Mollie's favorite place in the entire Harry Potter universe.
I mean, there's nothing better than cherubs spewing glitter all over the place.
In fairness to Madame Puttyfoot's, normally this is just a tea shop. This is just like a normal, like, tea, coffee shop, like, think Starbucks, but not as, like,
yeah, like a cozy coffee shop.
Yeah, it's just like a hipster coffee shop.
I would probably go there for real, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people would. This, however, on this particular day, is decorated to, it's decorated to a drastic level where, as you mentioned, cherubs are literally throwing confetti upon you at your table.
Yeah.
And it's not great.
No.
And then Harry becomes even more self-conscious when he realizes that at every table there are couples.
Yep.
Including probably Snape and Trelawney. We just didn't.
Right. They're in the back
mentioned.
somewhere.
Yeah, they got that private space.
Exactly.
But we do get Roger Davies and his date, who immediately, like, start holding hands. And then they start snogging, they start kissing. And Harry's like, I hope she expects none of this from me. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember what it was like. It's easy to poke fun at this now. But I'm trying to remember what I was like at 15.
Yeah.
Now pressure is on you to, like, make a move.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's an intimidating thing, I think.
Yeah.
Especially when one person might be more experienced at this particular circumstance than the other.
Yeah.
This is the first date he's been on, as far as we know. This is the first date he's been on. And Cho, as she mentions later, has literally been here and done that.
Yeah.
With Cedric. We'll get down that road.
So many feels. I know. I'm trying really hard to, like, let go of, like, older, lived a few years logical Mollie. Because I love and I hate this all at the same time. I love this so much, but I also just, like, it makes me cringe. But I
Well,
love it.
So the cringy parts that Mollie is mentioning start now. We get Harry, after, like, periods of intermittent, like, oh, let's make fun of Umbridge. Ha 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 ha. 5 minutes go by. Now we have nothing to talk about again. And it's silent.
Yeah.
And it's silent. Other than the snogging and kissing at the next table.
Right.
Silence.
Awkwardness.
Very awkward.
Yeah.
So Harry then mentions, oh, I got an idea. I'll ask Cho if she wants to go to the Three Broomsticks to see Hermione. Except he doesn't really phrase it in a great way.
No.
And it makes Cho think that Harry is more interested in seeing Hermione than seeing her. Fellas, I know you're out there. And I know you've said something. And the moment you say something, the wonderful woman that you're with gives you a look. And you immediately know you've said something wrong.
You've just walked right into it.
And we've all been there. It's happened to all of us. But Harry, as soon as he mentions Hermione and the Three Broomsticks, Cho's whole demeanor turns on a dime. And she is not happy.
No.
So much so that she mentions that Roger, the one holding hands and kissing at the next table, asked her out, like, fairly recently.
Yeah.
And she turned him down. And, oh, yeah, I was here last year with Cedric.
Yeah.
That's not great.
No.
None of that is great.
Not great.
And then this is where she goes from, like, a little passive aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair, maybe. Like, it's an understandable reaction.
In
Let me say it that
world,
way.
yes.
It's an understandable reaction.
Yeah.
Here's where I think she deviates from the world of, like, okay, I could kind of see where she'd start drifting. Then she mentions, like, did he mention me before he died?
Oh, yeah.
That's where it takes a turn into nope.
Just no.
This just got really awkward really fast.
Yeah.
And I do like Harry's response of, like, he was murdered.
Right.
He didn't have time to be like, Cho, let Cho know my feelings. Like, that's not how any of that works. I like that question. That question bothered me.
Yeah, that's such young love, though.
It is. I still am a firm believer. They need to talk through the Cedric thing.
Yes.
It's not a pleasant conversation. I don't think anybody would assume that it's a pleasant conversation for either of them.
No, yeah.
But if they're going to be a thing, they need to work that out. And it got brought up on their first kiss night and then left for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It wasn't mentioned the second time when they got the date. And then a month later, like, they just need to actually communicate.
Yeah, which is hard when you're...
It's also hard, even in my adult form, this is a hard subject to bring up.
Very hard conversation.
And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, Cho likes me and she's happy. Let's not bring up the sad thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things. So believe me, I understand. Like, it's a hard thing to talk about.
Right.
But this ain't happening.
No.
Unless they get past the Cedric of it.
Right.
And it's hard.
Yeah. They're just not emotionally mature enough to handle any of that.
No, the whole thing was fumbled from the get-go. I mean, Harry is not great at picking up these things. And he's 15. He shouldn't be.
No.
Like, this is one of those moments in his life.
Yeah.
That later on, when he's with his girlfriend or with his wife or with whoever, and he looks back on it, like, that was a teachable moment.
Yeah.
I now know how to better speak with my girlfriend or wife based on that moment.
Yeah.
Learning opportunity.
Exactly.
I did, however, enjoy when Cho eventually gets up and storms out.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the fact that he goes, women!
Yeah.
Like, throws up his hands. Women!
Those women.
I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
Because again, fellas, I mean,
yeah,
we've all said that at some point. Like, oh my goodness.
And us as females, we've always been like, men. Which is totally what Cho's thinking right now.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That's fair. I have my moments where I'm very dumb.
Yeah.
Very
I have my moments where I'm very emotional and just like, irrational.
I'll catch myself sometimes. I'm like, oh, I should not
Yeah.
have. I pull a Hagrid. I should not have said that.
Yeah.
Should not have said that. Well, and I get Harry, how like he thinks it's such an innocent comment because to him it is.
Mm-hmm.
He literally means nothing by it. But he doesn't understand how that can be heard from a different perspective.
Exactly.
With a different mindset. Right. And he figures that out eventually.
Right.
When she brings up the Hermione thing.
Yeah.
How do you think you would have handled, like, let's put you in Cho's shoes.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind, you go to school with him, and you have for a while now.
Yeah.
So you know he hangs out with Ron and Hermione.
Right.
Like, how would you react to Harry being like, hey, Hermione wants me to go meet her at the Three Broomsticks. Would you mind coming with me?
Yeah. I would like to believe... I would react...
Famous last words.
Right. I would react where like, oh man, he's bringing me into a circle of friends. But not knowing fully the situation, even though I know that he like hangs out with them, I'd probably be a little jealous. I'd be like, well, why are you going to meet, with all those emotional hormones going on? I probably would have been like, well, what do you want to meet Hermione for? Huh?
Well, let me rephrase it in a different way. So take you into the real world, not the Harry Potter world.
Yeah.
If you're on a date, you're like, hey, let's go out on Saturday. Okay, it's a date, Saturday.
Yeah.
And then halfway through this date, he goes, hey, one of my friends, making up a name, Ashley, I really want to meet her at this bar downtown or whatever. You want to come with? Like, how would you react?
I mean, I would be kind of disappointed because I would expect that I'd want to be with that person all day.
That's fair.
Getting to know that person.
Sure.
But I probably would reluctantly be like, okay. Because that's who I am as a person.
Fair enough. But that's putting you in Cho's shoes.
Right.
Of like, whoa, the plan just got switched on me and now I'm meeting you with another girl. It's what?
Right. I would definitely have questions. I think I would be like, well, what's going on? Like, what are we doing? Like,
sure.
I'd want to be more inquisitive about it.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to switch up the plan on you, like...
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely be disappointed that I didn't get the chance to, like, spend all day with that person I was going on a date with. Not all day, but, like, spend that time with that person.
I'm going to say something a little inflammatory here.
Okay.
I think this is kind of on Hermione.
Yeah?
I think this whole thing is a little bit on Hermione. Why? Because she didn't tell him at all what was going on or going to go on at the Three Broomsticks.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I don't think for someone who is so in touch with feelings, and obviously...
She didn't think about it.
She did not think about Cho in this circumstance at all.
Definitely a failure in Hermione.
And I get that she's got a bigger picture in mind, but...
Right.
I think it's a little on Hermione here.
Right.
Like, you knew Harry had this thing set up.
Right.
And you told him nothing about it going in.
Yeah.
It's a little on you.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get to the, after the big blow up at Madame Puttyfoot's, we get to the Three Broomsticks, where Harry runs into Hagrid initially. And Hagrid is not feeling pretty good. He's in a mood. He's in a mood. And, Harry's having a day. Because he has to deal with the incident with Cho, and now he goes to Hagrid, and Hagrid starts talking about how they're both orphans, and it's like, oh, can I just moonwalk my way out of this conversation?
The Homer Simpson into the bushes.
Kinda, yeah. I'm just like, I did not need this conversation back to back.
Yeah.
And then Hagrid eventually just leaves of his own, and he turns around, and Hermione's there with Luna and Rita Skeeter, of all people. Ultimately, Rita doesn't believe that Voldy's back. She also doesn't believe that the Prophet wants to print any of what Harry has to say.
Yeah. Which
gets into a little bit of back and forth about press and the media and just how bias works in the media.
Yep.
And a little behind the scenes with how Fudge might be pulling the strings there and all that kind of good stuff. I do like how Hermione refers to herself as Little Miss Perfect at one point.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she's getting sassy. I like it. But ultimately, Rita is to write the true account of the graveyard scene from Goblet of Fire from a pro-Harry point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And it will ultimately end up being printed in the Quibbler. And we find out Luna's father is the editor. Rita finds out that Luna's father is the editor. Which she's not super thrilled about having an article of hers put in the Quibbler. Nor does she think anybody will read it.
No.
Or take it seriously.
Yeah.
But what do you think about this game plan from Hermione?
I think it's solid. I mean, I will say it's a little like, okay, it's the Quibbler, though. I think anybody would think that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a good thing for Harry to be able to get his story out there somehow. So.
Yeah. I think Rita gets, kind of her antennas perked up because, we'll name names.
Yeah.
Like, we'll name all of the Death Eaters that Harry remembers. And it's like, I'm now interested.
Yeah.
Like, that's news.
She wants the dirty like dish.
That quill doesn't have to do any work because
Yeah.
it'll just be like laid out there. She doesn't have to like pump it up. It's like, this is juicy enough as is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even have to fluff it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting strategy. I don't know how the other adults in the world, like this is Hermione as a 15-year-old concocting this plan.
Yeah.
Involving Rita and I guess Luna's father, the editor. I don't know if Dumbledore or Sirius or Lupin or Voldy or any of them, I don't know how they would be like, oh, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how any of the adults would take this article.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that Voldy really wants Harry saying stuff, even if it is in the Quibbler. Maybe he does take that view of like, it's the Quibbler.
Right.
No one cares.
Right.
Or if Dumbledore, I could see Dumbledore being like, I'm sorry, you did what?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Maybe I should have thought of that.
Right.
Or, this was bad, because now this brings a lot of attention. I don't know. I don't know how any of them would think about it.
I mean, I will say, though, like, it is coming from Rita Skeeter, who does have a wide fan base.
It's true. She also has a reputation, though.
Yeah, she does. She does.
So.
But you still have people that are willing to hook on to her gossip.
True.
So.
She does have name brand recognition.
She does.
But, I mean, if you know her, you know that she maybe hyperbolizes some things.
Oh, yeah.
Flat makes some stuff up.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you were going to probably get a wide range of opinions on an article like this, just based on the author the actual publication, and the fact that the prophets already had several months to create a narrative.
Yeah.
And we talked about that with Dumbledore and Fudge back when they had that argument at the end of Goblet of Fire, and it's like, narrative matters, and who's going to try to control that narrative?
Right.
And what narrative is it going to be? And, that matters.
Right.
If you can be the first one to get your narrative out and have it be from a fairly trusted source, that matters. That goes a long way. And now you have the prophet having months of spouting that narrative. What reaction are you going to get, no matter who it's from or where it's printed?
Right.
But, anyway.
Yeah.
We will end the non-spoiler here.
Yeah.
And then we will kind of delve into the spoiler section and just see where that conversation goes. Yeah. So we'll be right back. All right, we are back with the spoiler section of Chapter 25, The Beetle at Bay. So we're going to start out with just some of Mollie's favorite points from some previous chapters. I know you were really high on St. Mungo's.
Oh, man. I know I said it earlier. I'll say it again. I'll say it again forever. I would totally work at St. Mungo's.
We are both in the healthcare field, so we do have that kind of experience.
We do.
What floor would you want to work on?
Well, I'm a little torn between a couple of them. I think it would be really cool to work at the artifact accidents, because I think it would be most similar-ish to what I do now. Because it's like cauldron explosions and wand backfiring and, like,
That's
maybe
fair.
like like broken bones and, you know, broom crashes. That seems like, okay, like, all right, let's heal up them bones. So I don't know how I would feel about the creature-induced injuries, because I think you'd get a lot of weird skin stuff, which I'm not really into. I
You
don't
think
want to
that's where you get the weird skin stuff? I think it's
yeah.
the next floor that you see the weird skin stuff.
Might.
The magical bugs floor is the one where I don't want any bit of that floor.
Yeah. See, I see that more of though as like colds and flus. Like it's contagious maladies, dragonpox, vanishing sicknesses. I don't know what that is, but it sounds like some kind of fungus.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't
I'm
want
gonna
any
pass
part of
on that floor too.
Okay.
Because again, I don't want to see anything like too gross.
Fair
especially with skin.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I never wanted to work wound care. Pass.
Wound care is okay as long as it's not infected wound care. Then it becomes an interesting...
Exactly. I don't want to specialize ever in wound care.
I used to work at a doctor's office, and I would work with some surgeons, and they would want like dressings changed on some things.
Yeah.
Or part of my job was literally take off the dressing of whatever like surgical incision was made and check it before the doctor got in, so I could give the doc a heads up like, hey, it's looking pretty good. I think I could just take out the staples real quick and be done. Or if it was just good, they just expected me to. Or if it didn't look good, be like, hey, I'm not touching that. You might want to take a look.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one in mind. I'm not going to like gross out our listeners, but I have one particular in mind that's still like ingrained there from years ago.
Yeah. Because usually what I have to look at is not so bad.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we're both based orthopedically. So muscles, bones, joints.
Right. Exactly.
Fairly simple.
Yeah.
Mine is spell damage. I think spell damage would be an exciting...
Spell damage?
Yeah. That'd be an exciting floor to work on.
I think so too. Like that's the other one I was torn between, because I think it would be kind of fun to be like figuring out like a puzzle or something like that. Like there's different pieces to... I
guess that could be hard too though, because, you know, that's where you get some of the Lockharts and the Alice and Frank.
Yeah.
And that could be hard.
Right.
To deal with. You need like a certain mindset too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess I'm not thinking of like their ward, which was the long-term ward. I'm thinking more like emergency care type things where it's just like a quicker fix, not like a permanently incapacitated type injury.
No.
Because that's hard emotionally to deal with.
For sure.
To see people that you know aren't going to get better. That'd be hard.
Yeah. That'd be really hard. Oh, I think it's been a hot minute. You guys were talking about Slytherins and how there really aren't very many redeeming Slytherins.
Mm-hmm. We've had that conversation with a few people. And Jen, being a resident Slytherin, has mentioned it quite a few times how it's frustrating for her.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, we'll see it more in the next book, and we can speak more on it on the next book, but I think there's some redeeming Slytherins out there. Like, I don't think that they're all bad. I think it's just the ones that we are introduced to for the most part. Like, I don't think Slughorn's that bad. Well, I think he's a very redeeming Slytherin.
Well, then what you're doing is you're getting into the definition of redemption and like what qualifies as redemption, because he's not an altruistic character. Yeah. But he's certainly not like an evil character either. Right. So he's like some gray lined area of Slytherin. Yeah.
Like, I don't identify with like the Slytherins at all in terms of like ambition and all of that kind of stuff. But I don't know, maybe it's the Hufflepuff in me where I'm like, no, they're not that bad. They're not all that bad. So.
Well, no, I mean, odds are that there's got to be some good Slytherins, and there's got to be some good Slytherins or well-intentioned Slytherins at Hogwarts. Then you get into the question of, is it just peer pressure that they all have to like seemingly be this way, or is it a more sinister type of pressure because they know who people's dads are? You know, it's not really a secret, right? Or there's. I
think there's a lot of layers.
There's a lot of layers. Yeah. And I think it is a more complicated issue than the general reader might just, Slytherin, he's evil. Yeah. And then, my big thing is we always get time jumps
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that was a moment to be like, hey, a Slytherin came up to Harry and was like, hey, good job.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that was their moment to get a positive remark from a Slytherin.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I think you guys were talking about knitting in one episode too. I think it was with Elizabeth. And I think magical knitting, like you could probably like set it up and walk away.
Oh.
But what I think is that your talent, like with knitting, is equivalent
to what actually the magic is?
Yeah, to what the magic is.
So it's similar to like Rita and her quill.
Exactly.
Like she imparts a bit of like when she like puts the quill to her like tongue or to her lips or whatever, and then it starts writing. It's a little like you're imparting some of yourself into that magical object.
Yes. Or else everyone would be awesome knitters. And clearly that's not the case.
That's fair. Because she does mention she gets better at it the more she does it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, okay. All right. That's interesting.
So that's my hot take on that.
That was with Hermione...
And the house elves.
Putting the clothes out for the house. What is your moral thought on that? Do you think she's morally wrong for trying to trick the house elves?
I do. I don't think that was cool.
I think it's a misstep by Hermione.
Yeah.
Personally.
Like, I get what she's trying to do, but, like... No.
I mean, you heard what Dobby said about it. He's like, the house elves won't even come into the common room anymore. You're driving them away from you.
Exactly. And then Dobby is stuck doing all the work, which, you know, he's Dobby. But
now he's got like 50 hats.
Yeah, he does. It's true.
He is set for a Hogwarts winter.
Very true. I guess one last thing is, you know, I never really thought about this, and I very much liked this when Jen brought this up, how this was her least favorite book just because of Umbridge. I completely agree with, like, it's not my least favorite book, but I can empathize with her that, like, every time she would read this, Umbridge would be there, and then you'd think, like, ugh, Umbridge. And yeah, you know, sometimes at night when you're reading, that's not what you want to end with.
You almost forget about Umbridge.
Yeah.
And then she pops up, and it's just immediate dread.
Like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah. It's just, you can read just a couple of words, and you can just have this visceral feeling about it.
Yeah.
And it's a credit to the writing being done, is what it really is. Which is, honestly, it's why it's one of my favorite books. Is yes, it's hard to read that, and you get so infuriated with the injustice of Umbridge. But the fact that it's causing such an emotional reaction, like a book is causing such an emotional reaction, I think is just brilliant.
Oh, it's awesome.
So, you know, that's my reasoning for why it's my favorite book, but...
Yeah. I can understand that. Like, there's TV shows that people have told me are just phenomenal, like Breaking Bad, and I can't do it because it just gives me this ick feeling. So,
really?
Yeah. So
TV shows are different for me in that if I do feel like infuriated at it, I'm not as... I want to be more intrigued than infuriated.
Yeah.
If the show is making me mad, I'm not inclined to continue watching it.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's different from books to visual media, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
I mean, there are characters that can be infuriating, but if like the show is, I can't.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah. So
there are parts of Breaking Bad that made me mad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil Breaking Bad for our listeners, but there are parts that made me mad.
Yeah, like everyone was like, you need to watch this. And I watched like 2 or 3 episodes and I was like, yeah, no, I can't.
There are like 1 or 2 characters that made me really mad. But there are also 1 or 2 characters in that show that I'm like, I love every time this character's on screen. So I have to watch just for this character.
Yeah.
And I'm fine doing that because it's so good. But
yeah.
Anyway.
Yes.
If anybody else wants to be part of the conversation, you leave a comment on any of our episodes on Spotify. You can also participate in the polls. You can comment on Twitter or Instagram. You can repost our stuff. That always helps us grow. You can also leave a voicemail. And instead of me reading your words, we can hear your voice and your words yourself by leaving that voicemail. And as always, thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsAPod.